traveling the Vortex.
We've joined the Doctor as he travels the Vortex and landed at episode number 54. And I'm the next Keith.
No, I'm the next Keith.
I'm the real Keith.
I don't think that's the way you planned it.
No, it wasn't, but I liked it better. I honestly, I hadn't anything planned after.
Oh, beyond that,
Yeah.
that was it. Oh, yeah.
That was about it.
It was a good open. I like it. Nice
Thank
job. Nice job.
Am I still Keith?
No, you're Shaun.
You're
now.
Shaun now.
Oh, okay. I'm Shaun.
It turns out that you absorb my memories through an info drive.
Info stamp.
Info stamp, you're right. So you thought you were me, but
Hang
not
on,
really.
I'm accessing things. Oh, wow, I didn't want to remember that. Okay.
Everything you thought you forgot, you now remember.
Yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, how's everybody doing this week?
You were really horrible to your first grade teacher. Man. Oh!
Did you guys do anything this week?
Um,
Anything special?
Watch the first episode of Sherlock.
Yeah, you guys have seen
so
it.
good.
I haven't, and it's good.
Yo,
Even though
The show is
it hasn't
still-
aired here in the United States.
we got a red eye.
You caught the red eye, yeah. You liked it too, Shaun?
very much. It was
Very
very,
much.
very, very, very good. The ending? But we'll discuss once you've caught up.
Okay.
It is a bit of a leap, but
Everything else was phenomenal.
Well,
The
now
very,
I'm a
very
little
end.
worried now.
No,
I hate when you guys do that. I hate when you see things and you say, it was really great up until a certain point. And I'm like,
it didn't diminish the episode in my eyes.
Everything before the credits was awesome.
dang it.
Kind of like tonight's Doctor Who offering.
No, we'll get there. Yeah, we'll get there. What's new in the news this week, guys?
And there wasn't really
No new
much.
news.
No news this week. Although
Sean remembered his news.
I remembered the news
after we
from last
posted
week.
the story last week.
Well, you got to. For those that didn't see that on our website, who get our feed from iTunes or other aggregators that don't visit our website frequently,
They
what was the
should
news?
frequent our website because there are cool things on the website other than the podcast. And there's your plug for tonight. The big news was that on I don't remember the exact day now. It was either New Year's Eve or New Year's Day.
Yeah.
I think it was New Year's Eve,
Actually, I think it was the day before New Year's Eve.
or maybe it was the day before New Year's Eve.
Or maybe it was the day before New Year's Eve.
Wibbly wobbly timey wimey. Mrs. Georgia Moffat became Mrs. David Tennant, and so that was the big news that I couldn't remember. So they're official. They're hitched.
Yeah.
Peter Davison was at the wedding, which I thought was.
I would hope so.
Now, this
It
guy-
is his daughter.
Well,
I
you
hope
know,
he gave
was
her
there.
away.
This kind of brought up an interesting idea here, and is just totally thinking outside the box. But so they have a child now,
Yes.
or well, do they have a child, or is they're in the
because
process
it's-
of having a child?
That's been months ago that we knew she was pregnant. She was like 3 or 4 months along then, I'm sure. I mean, Keith was still at his old place.
But we don't know if it was a boy or
I'm
a
sure
girl.
it's been born. Don't know.
Okay, let's assume they had a boy, just for sake of argument. So we've got Peter Davison playing the Doctor, who has a daughter, who marries David Tennant, who played the Doctor. Wouldn't it be something if Georgia and David's son grew up to play the Doctor?
That would be very cool.
I mean, talk about keeping it in the family. That's
Baby Olive. I'm assuming that must be a girl.
not that the Doctor couldn't be a girl. See, I need
Yeah,
to qualify
well,
my
that's
statement
true,
now.
that's true.
Neil Gaiman proved that's right.
Gaiman proved that could
Baby
happen.
Olive.
Or at the very least, it'd be really cool to see Baby Olive come as a companion.
That'd be kind of cool, too. Yeah.
That would be kind of cool.
You're all right.
Or maybe Olive is one of those weird British names for boys.
Could be.
I don't know.
The Doctor's granddaughter is the Doctor's companion. Not unheard of.
Ooh, and what if she then fell in love with and married the current Doctor? I'm not even going to go there.
I don't want to use this phrase but it's the only thing that comes to mind. So I'm just not going to go there.
But that was the big news from last week that I couldn't remember.
I'm glad you remembered now.
And thrilled to have shared that.
You did add it to the show notes.
I did add it, and there was. I'll be honest. There was a part of me that, as I was typing it in, I was like, "I'll show Glenn."
I still
make fun of me. I remember news.
I still maintain it's not huge news like you were making it out to be. This is huge news.
It was huge news for them.
Yeah, well, it is huge news for them.
And our congratulations go out to the happy couple.
I understand they proposed. He proposed to her actually on Christmas or around there last year. So yeah, so that's pretty cool.
Didn't we discuss that in our very first episode?
First or second, yeah, for sure. Or third or fourth,
whenever that was.
Somewhere around there at the beginning.
I don't think it was the first because we didn't have the format that we have now.
I don't think we had news in the first episode.
Well, and we didn't talk about David Tennant. You were all about who's this Matt Smith guy and why do I love him so much?
That's true. We were all.
You guys would still bring up news, and I would glaze over. Not really.
That's true. He did kind of.
That was the first month or so.
Okay, I'm back now that the news is over. That was kind of Keith's MO back in the day.
I'm trying to be spoiler free.
I don't think we ever said news that would spoil him though back in the day either.
Oh, you should talk to Sarah.
Yeah, she spoiled something for me from later.
What?
I don't remember now what it was. We were watching the proms, and she says, "Oh, does so and so marries so and so, don't they?" And I'm like, "Spoilers." And she's like, "Oh."
For those,
and I know who it is, and I know what the question was now.
But I'm not going to.
It was unprovoked too. So.
Yeah, so just out of the blue.
And
then
you can't blame me on that one.
No,
we're only 4
away.
4 from
She felt so bad about it.
Including Dreamland, 5 away. Although you've seen Dreamland now, but we were only 5 away.
Technically, now we're only 3 away.
Yeah, now we are only 3.
But
no, 4.
Technically 4 episodes.
I did. You'd have been proud. I played it off completely.
He tried to play it off so much.
And he bought it. He doesn't know that there may be something else afoot. So.
Of course, now I'm confirming it for you. But, anyway, no, it's
from his immediate Sarah spoilers. I knew it was.
We were so close. We were doing so
the look
well.
on her face too was priceless because she was like, "Oh," and it just hit her. Oops. Oh God, I'm sorry. I didn't mean. It's like don't play it up. Just leave it alone.
Then he tried to throw out fake spoilers and
it didn't work. It didn't help.
It totally worked.
Yeah. Did you know that Rory's going to come back as a Cyberman?
You told him that?
Yeah.
Shaun.
That was just a red herring to throw him off the trail of what's really going to happen. I figured if I told him what was really going to happen, he wouldn't worry about the red herring.
Well, let's move this one along so we can get that much closer to the next specials.
Well, there we go.
That's right.
What are we starting with tonight?
We got feedback now, right? No other news, right? Nobody else knows it. Is there any big news that you've forgotten about, Shaun, that you'll remember?
There is, actually.
Good.
Although it's too late now because we're getting a late start tonight. It's after midnight now, so it's Monday.
Midnight, yeah.
But yesterday, which would have been Sunday, the day before.
I'm sorry, it's still our Sunday.
It's still our Sunday.
It is still our Sunday.
Today would have been
Bill Hartnell's
birthday.
Right.
So that was the other bit of news, which you'll notice I did get on the website.
You did, and you got a secret out. You got that up on time this time, but
scheduling.
I won't tell. Because as I was posting a certain show last week, I went, "What is all this stuff here?"
I got the whole month ready to go, baby.
He's got his personal secretary working.
Hey, when I get 2 hours of uninterrupted time, it's amazing what I can accomplish. I got a whole month worth of work done on the Vortex site, and you don't even know about it yet.
It's quite all right. Well, I know about it because I go in there. But anyway, so happy birthday to Bill Hartnell, who would have been how old today?
Today's 104.
Is it 104? I couldn't remember for sure. So
104, 114. I want to say 104.
I think that's right.
It's on our website.
It is. Yeah, do the math. Anyway,
and if you get our podcast through iTunes or some other aggravator, and it's an aggravator, not it's not an aggregator. It's an aggravator because iTunes aggravates me.
He would have been 104.
104, thank you. You can have interesting tidbits of information like birthdays,
and the timeline that we posted,
which Keith pointed out something.
So upset about.
Keith pointed out something this week that I hadn't considered. We're not on the Zune store right now. I totally overlooked Zune.
A year in, and we just realized
1 year, and we didn't wear on Zune. So anybody that's Zune subscribers or prefers Zune over iTunes, we'll be there soon, we promise. So if you'd like to resubscribe to us there, if you're just using Zune to aggregate us, which you can do. Yeah. You can put our FeedBurner site in there, and you can get our podcast that way through Zune. But if there's anybody that prefers Zune over iTunes, we will have a dedicated Zune site very soon.
So that means that we could have somebody listening to us on iTunes and somebody listening to us on Zune and somebody going to the website and downloading or playing the podcast directly off there, and it could be the same person listening to us 3 times.
That is potentially true, yes. You're right.
We should hide.
I'm not sure why anybody would
We should hide nuggets of information that
on each different feed.
We could do exclusives, because you know how I feel about those, that are specific to each feed.
And you know how much I just totally love putting that much work into the project. So I'll get right on that. You do realize it all comes from the same place, right?
You got my shirt logo yet?
I am still working on that too. Although, I forgot to tell you, this is totally off subject, and I'm going to tangent on something that none of the listeners care about right now.
Not that we ever do.
I've been working on my computer today, and I've gotten it back up almost completely running. So I've got to reinstall the software that is needed for that, and it will be done. And back to your regularly scheduled podcast.
Sweetness.
Yeah. Anyway, so shall we move on to feedback?
Let's move on to feedback.
Our first bit is a bit of audio feedback from our good friend Dr. Phil.
Hi, Dr. Phil.
And let's take a listen.
Hey guys, Dr. Phil here, just wanting to call in with a little bit of feedback and really enjoying, I'm in the process of listening to your Big Finish New Year's special. Just wanted to call in and say one thing, since you guys showed a great affection for Charlie Pollard, and Shaun really loved the shout-outs to Bakshai's Wizards and to Tarna's Flying Beasts and Heavy Metal, by the way. That was pretty awesome. Nonetheless, you guys were commenting about Charlie Pollard. And Keith, when you get around to listening to the Gallifrey audios, besides having some really good canine action, there's an episode in there, and I won't say which one, that has India Fisher playing another Pollard, playing one of the Pollard sisters, but it's really cool and an interesting twist, so I don't want to give more away than that, but I promise when you get to it, it'll be very, very cool and interesting and thought-provoking, and also set in a historical period, which will also be a lot of fun. So anyway, keep up the great work, gentlemen. Great listen as always, and thank you for being my company on many long drives. Take care, guys, and Happy New Year. Bye-bye.
All right. Well, thanks for that, Phil. We appreciate that audio.
As always, thank you for sending in your tidbits of information. We love hearing them, and we're definitely going to get to some more Big Finish, and I can't wait to get to the Gallifreys.
Me too.
The more we talk about them, the more excited I am. And
absolutely.
Unfortunately, we've got to slog through. Not slog. I'm using that word again. But
yeah. Why do you use that word?
I like that word.
Well,
I'm a fan of that word.
It's a derogatory word.
It's an expressive word.
Okay. I say unfortunately. Big Finish, I kind of feel, is the one area where, you know what? We've done Keith such a disservice in some ways by jumping and traveling the Vortex in the manner that we do, that at least we can try and give him something that's chronological.
Yes, no, absolutely.
But the Big Finish, other than release date, isn't really chronological.
That's true. Big Finish jumps within itself.
Jumps around more
within
than
itself
yeah.
it does. But for example, the Eighth Doctors that we just did,
we're doing those in order.
Those come fairly chronologically.
Yes.
Well, they're all back to back.
But not just in order. The Sixth Doctor ones with Evelyn Smythe, even though it might be episode number 7, 9, and 15,
are all
the Evelyn Smythe
order. Yes.
story kind of continues throughout that.
I would agree.
I would like to try and give him some sense of, as opposed to, hey, we're going to watch this tonight. Oh, so and so left. Don't worry, you'll get to know her later. So, but we'll definitely get there.
That's true.
I didn't know that there were 4 years worth of Gallifrey audios. Four seasons.
Seasons, yes.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that either. So.
Wow.
And I'm so intrigued to listen to the Gallifrey audios. It's going to be a matter of prioritizing my time to get to them. If I do so before we actually try to do a review of them as well.
If I get burnt out on jumping ahead with Eighth Doctor episodes, I might go back.
You're going to head into Gallifrey.
I think I might head into Gallifrey.
You get some canine there, too. So
I
there's
know.
incentive for you.
That's why.
What do you mean there's not incentive for you? Canine's not a big enough draw?
I like canine, but I'm not obsessed with canine like Keith is. Unhealthily obsessed with canine like Keith is.
I don't.
Always, it's unhealthy.
I don't always bring up canine.
Yeah, you do.
No, I don't.
Canine or Cyberman.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you do.
Also, But it may take me a bit, too, because I am really enjoying the 8th Doctor stuff I'm listening to.
That's good.
For the most part.
Oh, good.
Excuse me. Pardon me. Next bit of feedback comes from Holly Mack, or not Glenn's Holly, or Holly from Wisconsin. Holly writes, "Hey guys, great last podcast. Love the second Side Trip podcast with Dr. Phil. I'm most definitely going to try out some Big Finish audios. So, yay.
Good.
Always glad to bring somebody else to the brand.
Yep, absolutely.
Now on to my thoughts on Dreamland and the Next Doctor, which is what we're reviewing tonight. Mm-hmm. With Dreamland, it took me a little while to get used to the animation. It kind of reminded me a bit of Reboot in a way, but once I got past that, the story was good.
A more stylistic Reboot. I could see that.
Yeah, but Reboot was good. I'm sorry, I'm jumping ahead. Love the charm offensive line. Just put up your hands and smile. Plus, the royalty and it's not amused line that the Doctor says when he and Jimmy discover the Viper Ox Queen's nest. Also, the "is that your plan? It's in development" when the Doctor and the female alien are trying to escape had me cracking up. Also love Jimmy's reaction to the TARDIS. No, it's bigger on the inside than out, but I think Holy Smokes covers it rather nicely. The Next Doctor. I loved the opening sequence and the nod to the Christmas Carol with the Doctor asking a boy what day it was. When the Doctor meets up with the other Doctor, and they encounter the Cyber Shade and decide to go after with Rosalita just shaking her head and calling them idiots, yep, the fun's about to begin. The Doctor, realizing that it may not be a good idea as he and the other Doctor are being dragged up into the building, brings to mind a scene from a movie called The Great Outdoors. While the scene in the movie involved water skiing, it can still be said here, trouble, let go of the rope.
I thought of... because I don't know if I'll remember to bring this up, but I thought of that while watching it. But the other Doctor has it wrapped around his arm so much he can't just let go.
You can't just let go.
Yeah.
Advice followed in either of these scenes? No. Funny? Yes. Rosalita saves the day like any good companion. Love the scene with the sonic screwdrivers. I think the other Doctor's sonic screwdriver could actually work on wood. The way that David Tennant and David Morrissey play off each other is great. The scenes with the Doctor trying to fight off the Cybermen with a sword was cool. I also thought the other Doctor's TARDIS was pretty bow tie. Loved the info stamp scene with all the previous incarnations of the Doctor. I found it very interesting that the Cybermen were actually taking orders from a human. Just slightly chilling when Mrs. Haddigan becomes invaded by the Black Oil. Wrong show. I mean the Cyber King. Loved the rescue scene of Frederick Lake. The ending with the Doctor and Jackson was very touching. I loved how Jackson would not take no for an answer about the Doctor joining him and the others for Christmas dinner. Looking forward to hearing your thoughts on these episodes. Holly from Wisconsin. Thank you, as always, Holly, for writing in. And as usual, you hit all of the highlights that, the things that I would talk about on this.
Yeah,
I probably still will, but
That will never stop us. Our next bit of feedback comes from Chrissy.
Hi, Chrissy.
Hi, Vortex boys. I really enjoyed your Big Finish discussion and Dr. Phil's Big Finish guide. Something occurred to me this week about the podcast, and I wanted to share it with you guys. This sounds serious. As well as you know, there are tons and tons of Doctor Who podcasts out there. But something that makes Traveling the Vortex stand out is it's a perfect viewer's guide to both new and classic series of Doctor Who. I have to be honest. I would have never watched The Curse of Peladon if you hadn't chosen it for Friday Night Who and you weren't going to review it. But then I would have been missing out on a really great Doctor Who story. I'll go into detail why I liked it when you guys actually discuss it in a few weeks. And a lot of new fans want to get into classic Who, but they don't really know how to begin because there's so much material to cover. But you guys do a great job choosing stories to discuss and review. Granted, sometimes you do some turkeys. Do pick some turkeys. See also The Dominators. But that's fine. Because it's good to see the okay Doctor Who along with the really, really, really good Doctor Who. And now you've delved into Big Finish. It's going to become an even better guide to Doctor Who stories. I think Traveling the Vortex has become an excellent podcast for both newbies and veteran fans to use as a viewing guide for the series. Just my thoughts. Speaking of, and it's okay Doctor Who, the next Doctor is alright. Not my favorite of the Christmas specials, not even my favorite of the David Tennant specials. But it serves as a nice bridge between Series 4 and the specials. David Morrissey is a pretty good Jackson Lake, but he's not a bad doctor either. As long as he thinks he's the doctor anyway. I have a theory about why she really liked him like that.
Okay.
You know what I'm talking about?
That maybe.
I heard somewhere that he had auditioned to be the actual Doctor when the series was brought back, and he's one I wouldn't mind seeing in the role when Matt Smith regenerates. Sorry, Keith, I have to get my digs in somehow. Just twist that knife, Chrissy.
Keith, have you heard he's leaving?
I really like the tethered aerial release developed in style, the hot air balloon TARDIS. That was funny. Also, I believe this is the first time a flashback of the 9 previous Doctors was included in an episode of the new series, which helps solidify Paul McGann's 8th Doctor as canon.
Yay!
Looking forward to your discussion, Chrissy.
Well, Chrissy, as always, thank you so much for the kind words and for writing in. And I suppose I don't want to ruin the surprise, but we kind of plan on reviewing everything at some point or another.
Well, I hope so.
I don't want you to think that we're pulling out nuggets of this is what we think is essential Hugh viewing. I mean, we're certainly trying to expose Keith to some of the good stuff. But we're like with the Dominators, we kind of knew going into it that. I mean, I'd never seen it, but just the description on the back was enough to kind of go. And the costuming. But it's like the old song goes: you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have
Doctor Who. Of life.
Yeah. Eventually we'll get to all of it. So.
I like to think that she has brings up a good point, and in the introduction you guys have given me, you've given me a good balance, and it's a good way to go through New Who as opposed to mainlining it. I mean, you get to stretch out the New Who. You get to see the history of where some of these villains are coming from. I think it's a great way to especially for newbies, to experience Doctor Who.
I would think so too. Yeah,
it's also a lot of fun.
There is that.
And I want to hit on her pointing out, which we'll talk about later as well, but the fact that the images from previous Who really did solidify it. Now, we did get the one image in Family of Blood. Actually, I think it was it was Human Nature. That is the journal.
The journal,
and we do see the individual shots of the Doctor sketched in his journal.
The sketches, yes.
However, this was the first one that used a video clip of the 8th Doctor. Of all the Doctors, that did qualify the continuity of the 8th Doctor.
Do you think
within the series
emblazoned Stephen Moffat to include that in 11th Hour? Or do you think he would have done it anyways?
I think he would have done it anyway. I think that 11th Hour called for that, and I think that also Moffat felt. I mean, he's such a fan that I think he felt that it was necessary to include it just for the scope of what it was. So
it is called the 11th Hour.
Well, that's true. I think that they couldn't have done that scene right, either of them, without including Paul
that's
McGann.
Probably true, yeah.
I mean, it would...
That's true.
Yeah. They would have almost had to not jump to Eccleston. But that's also knowing what I know and not questioning is 8 actually canon or not.
When are we going to get Shaka Doctor, Moffat?
Yes.
Well, that's all the feedback we had this week.
That's it. That's all we had. It was a light week for
week.
feedback.
I wonder if that's a reflection of the episodes we're reviewing?
Yeah, could be.
Or have we gone so massive lately that they're still trying to work through our episodes?
Perhaps.
Well,
this week we're reviewing Dreamland and
the next Doctor.
That's right.
We'll save the best for last.
The best for last? Oh.
Out of these two. Dreamland!
Okay.
Dry Springs, Nevada, 1958. During a visit to a local diner, the Doctor befriends a young waitress, Cassie, and her friend Jimmy. When the Doctor examines an extraterrestrial artifact, he draws the attention of a mysterious man in black, an alien warrior, and Colonel Stark, the commander of Dreamland, the military base also known as Area 51. So begins a momentous mission for the Doctor, who with the help of his new companions and Jimmy's grandfather, Night Eagle, sets out to rescue the stranded alien, Rivesh Mentalax, and his wife, Sarubu Velex. Wow, I didn't know these names were going to be in here.
I was impressed with the first one.
Yeah.
As soon as you said "and his wife," I was like, "Oh, dude, bail out!"
And
Sarubu Velex, from the clutches of the American military, from the terrifying alien race, the Viper Rocks, led by the ruthless Lord Aslock.
Is that the end?
That's the end.
Dun-na-na.
At least this one got it done.
I did get it done.
It's a good story.
It's a really entertaining story. I almost think it would have been better served tweaking the dialogue and being an audio adventure.
It probably would have worked as an audio adventure as well. I don't know.
It just the backgrounds and everything but the people in this. I like the animation of. It was kind of a airbrushed CG animation for the environments, and I liked that aspect of it.
Let's talk about the elephant in the room.
The people just...
I don't want to... Obviously, I've done exactly 0 hours of animation of any sort. So definitely keep my my limited experience in mind. I was not a fan of the animation in this at all. I'm not a fan of computer animation for the most part, unless it's done exceedingly well, like Pixar.
And some DreamWorks.
There's a handful of outside Pixar Studios stuff that I consider to be good. Almost everything else falls into it's computer animated. I don't really care anymore. There's not enough of a draw there to really excite me, and I can't explain why. I don't like it when it's done badly, as this one was. It's so distracting from everything else that's going on. It almost takes so much away from the story because you're not presenting it well, and it's very frustrating. Is
it just me, or do you kind of get the feeling that it's cheaply done?
Yes, I get that.
I mean, it's one thing for it to be computer animated. It's another thing to have that kind of cheap. What it reminds me of is there's some. We're going to go into the gamer realm here, but there's some video games that are done on this level of animation, and for the cut scenes, which are, for people that don't know, are the scenes in between the actual gameplay.
Even some of the gameplay
that furthers the story.
To me, it looked like a PS1.
Yeah,
quality,
it's almost it's
32-bit
like it's
graphics.
on the verge of PS1, PS2, or Xbox, Xbox 2. There's some early Xbox 360 games that are this type of animation. Is what I compare it to.
And I guess I'm enough of a PS2 fan that maybe early PS2. Later, I think they really
it's very stiff. And some people will say that the last animated film or story that they did, which was help me out here, Infinite Quest, was stiff for 2D animation. But I think I'd almost rather see that stiff style of animation in 2D than 3D, because when you go 3D, you're expecting a lot more already anyway. And when you go into the computer animation of this, I was the same way. I was turned off by it. Now, once I get used to it after the first half of the first episode, then I'm okay. But it's until you get used to it, it doesn't bother me. So it's still there and obvious, and I don't like it. But it's not so bad because the story then starts to draw me in enough that I kind of start to overlook
the story does get
poor
rather
animation.
Interesting in it.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but every time we would change environments, we would go from inside the base to outside. We would go from, in town to out of town. We would go to any time or above ground, below ground. Anytime they made a change like that, and we got a new color palette, which I agree with you. The backgrounds I thought looked really good, and then our really badly rendered computer animated Doctor comes striding into frame, and it pulled me right back out of the story all over again.
Part of David Tennant's charm is his facial expressions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it doesn't translate.
No, it doesn't.
In either of the animated ones, it doesn't translate.
The worst of the animation in this one, I think we'll agree, is the people. In fact, I think the aliens look fantastic as computer animation.
Absolutely. I don't think they would have looked good in the actual series.
I think they look terrific.
Which one?
And agreed.
The grays or the...
Well, I think the grays are a little too simplistic. I don't think they look as good as the help me with the name of the race.
Viper Rocks?
The Viper
Yes,
Rocks.
Viper Rocks. They look great. I think they look fantastic.
The anthropomorphic bugs?
No, they're not anthropomorphic bugs because they're not bugs like any bugs I've ever seen on Earth. They may have bug-like features, but
That's
they
true.
are not
That's true.
anthropomorphic bugs. On the other hand, it's not even on the other hand. The people really take you out of the story. And it's actually you get used to it to a point until they run, and then walking's not even so bad. It's the running is just terrible. It doesn't. It's anyway.
Well, and I agree with you what you said. If Cosgrove Hall did this as the traditional, I say traditional, but if they'd done this to match the animation from Infinite
2D
Quest
animation, yeah.
or from The Invasion, I'd have been totally okay with it, and I'd probably be singing its praises right now, just because it was a fun story. But you make that leap from that traditional animation to this, and yes, you're expecting a little bit more. But the other challenge you have is when this doesn't look right. Even Toy Story, you go back to the original Toy Story that Pixar did. Pixar was very smart because they knew the people didn't look right.
They hardly had the people in it.
And the people are not hardly in it at all. Yeah. You never see Mom, other than, from the neck down. She'd walk in and out of frames or something like that. I mean, it was very, very limited because they didn't even want to mess with it. And it made sense to do it that way. They've gotten, obviously, progressively better with each release that's come out since then. But this one felt almost like... It felt like a test animation that wasn't quite ready to go out, but we slapped some color on it and called it good.
You're exactly right. It looks like a draft or a mock-up
Yeah.
of what the final episode could potentially be, but then it's just like they released the draft.
It almost feels like it was a scrapped video game.
Yeah,
like
it does.
These are the cutscenes of a video game. I expected to take a break and start playing something as the Doctor, and it never happened.
Yeah, I think it's the BBC cutting corners. I think it's the BBC doing with what they could afford to do it in 3D animation, which I think was a poor choice. You should have spent that money and done quality 2D animation as opposed to spending that money for that.
And they would have even saved some money.
I don't know that they'd have saved it. I think that they could have spent the same budget they had for this and gotten a really knockout 2D from a different company if it wasn't Cosgrove Hall. I mean, if it was another company, I would have liked somebody else to delve into it. If you're going to get the 3D animation,
the financial reality anymore. You mentioned
it is.
DreamWorks, and I mean everybody, Universal, Disney, Pixar,
so much
everybody's doing computer animation films now.
Well, they're all trying to one-up each other. So.
And they are. And honestly, they're not.
Unfortunately, when it comes to the CG animated films, you can amaze anybody with the graphics. I mean, the CG animation in Final Fantasy: The Spirits Within was fantastic. A lot of people didn't like the story.
Yeah.
I did, but a lot of people didn't.
If you've gone back
have
and
to
watched
have
it
that
lately?
No, I haven't. Not since I watched it
the
the
animation's
first time.
not near as
I'm
as
sure.
it was.
Yeah.
Because,
But at the time, I mean,
everybody else is catching up.
Exactly.
and that's why
not catching up, but even surpassing now. So.
That's why DreamWorks and all the other companies aren't catching up as well with Pixar's, because Pixar has the excellent stories. They sell you on the story. Even going back to Toy Story, where some of the graphics aren't as good as Toy Story 3, the story is so good that you get so absorbed in it. Madagascar, I'm sorry if anybody likes Madagascar, but the animals just look so toy, cartoonish.
Well, I think
I haven't seen all of it, but from what I've seen of the story, I don't care enough.
Without going into a whole segment of just animated movies, I think there's things like Madagascar, which I think are artistic choices. I think the reason why the animals look the way they do in that is it's an artistic license in that one. I think that's a style. That doesn't have anything to do with...
I think it's partially. I think
it doesn't have anything to do with...
We don't have the technology to do them realistic.
No. That's not at all. That's not... I totally disagree. That is not why the animals in Madagascar look the way they do. That's an artistic choice. That's an animation style that they chose to do for those movies. And I totally disagree that it has anything to do with the fact that they can't make them look realistic.
I agree and I disagree. It was an artistic choice
because they
couldn't do it the way they probably wanted to.
That's what I think.
I completely disagree with that statement. But anyway, we're not reviewing Madagascar or Pixar films for that matter, and we're holding this to a very high standard. based on that, which is sort of unfair.
When was this
like you, going back to the financial thing, that's what it boils down to.
Everybody's doing
is
it now,
the financial
I'm sorry,
limitations.
if you cannot release even a short film that is computer animated that is of a certain caliber quality, don't do it.
Yeah.
Especially, and this is one of the things that really drives me nuts, we've already established a specific animated style with Infinite Quest. Why not stick with it? Like you said, whether it's Cogsgrove Hall or somebody else, if we're going to do another animated feature, why not continue in the lane that's already been paved versus trying to strike out and do something new? I mean, yeah, it's our artistic decision to do that as well, but why? I mean, it makes it harder, almost harder to consider it canon. You know, if you want to have that argument, because now all of a sudden it's a different offshoot and a different...
Oh, no, I disagree, because I think you can have that argument for the 2D animation that is Infinite Quest. I mean...
but that's canon.
But my point is, my point is, if there are as many people out there that could make that argument for that based on what you just said, and I disagree with both issues. I think they're both canon. I think they're both...
I think it's.
I think what we should focus on here is the story. I think we've run our course on the animation.
Yeah.
We're not happy with it.
No,
we didn't like it. It is very stiff, and it does detract from the story. However, I think we all do admit it's a great story. It's well told.
I don't know if I'd say great. It's a decent story.
It's a good story, and it's well told, and it's interesting, and it's unique.
It is a good story with enough of the witty doctorisms that
there's
it almost
great
elevates
like
it to great.
It's
very much a moment's story.
Yeah.
Yes.
The hiding in a box, and you know how we're going to get out. What, you didn't count your steps?
I think she called it snailing.
You know, some men what was the line? Some men are born crates. Some are born in crates. Some men have crates thrust upon them.
He does have a lot of great lines.
Yeah, I mean, and David Tennant really took, in a lot of cases, with some of the audios, took the material that was at hand and really...
But quite frankly, I think that David Tennant has probably as many great lines in each episode of Doctor Who, but I think they stand out in this one because you're looking at the... you're trying to find the nuggets in this.
That could
one.
be.
You're trying
that's
to find
true.
the good points of this. I think that's why they stand out.
Overall,
but yes, it does have a lot of fantastic ones that do stand out.
I would love to see or hear more about the Viper Rocks and the fact that the Doctor believes in them and knows that they're going to someday evolve. I love that aspect of it, that they're someday going to put down their violent tendencies and go away. I would love to see more of why they went to war with the Greys. I mean,
I agree.
I don't think that was fully explained well. And so,
I mean, I understand. Again, it's an animated story. It really is done for the kid market.
It is.
I mean, they're as evidenced by the when he's talking to the alien and he says, "Oh, they took my wife." And we kind of discussed that a little bit. It's like, okay, from a science fiction standpoint, from a Doctor Who standpoint, would this alien actually say wife, or would he say mate?
Yeah, that's
I think wife is a conceptual term that maybe would not apply in this case.
Sarah questioned, would an advanced alien species be past marriage?
And there are all kinds of questions like that.
Yeah.
But since we are aiming this at a younger audience,
I think that's why.
It totally makes sense.
I think what we're doing is
thrown
we're
in there.
focusing on something that young people recognize and associate with. Yeah.
And so once you've made that
leap,
it's okay to kind of let a lot of the other things slide with it. I'll be honest. I loved the idea of the Viper Rocks, and I wanted to know more about the story, the backstory, and the potential that they have, and the fact that the Doctor knows that someday this is going to happen. I totally agree with you, Keith.
And I also, part of me questions, is that his belief in every species, or does he know something specifically about the Viper Rocks?
I got the impression that he knew something specifically.
I got that impression as well.
Okay.
But I would have much rather known more about that than had all the running around in Area 51. In a way, this is textbook Doctor Who, because we've got the running through corridors. And we get the captured and escaping and captured and escaped and captured. I mean, it's very almost a paint by numbers in some regards. And while going into the backstory of the Viper Rocks would have been awesome, in this format for the kids,
it wouldn't
work.
Right.
I mean, I would have loved to have seen it, but I understand why they didn't.
I would almost love to see a spin-off or a prequel or something.
Let's bring the Viper Rocks back and do something else with them.
Big Finish, even.
Big Finish would be a great vehicle for this.
Especially now we know what they look like based off of this. Audio-wise, they wouldn't need much. I guess they would need to do something for those that haven't seen Dreamland, but...
I'll go on record as saying I didn't like the fact they were bugs.
You didn't like
I didn't like the fact they were bugs. Especially coming off of Infinite Quest, which we had that whole segment that was set with the praying mantis, which is definitely an anthropomorphization of a humanoid, or not a humanoid, but a Terran insect.
Yes.
But just when the reveal came, it was like, oh, really? Bugs? Again? All right. Because bugs are scary. I mean, they're just there's that automatic association.
Bugs.
Giant bugs. All right, well, you got to let it go.
Did the beginning part of it give you a Battleship Troopers?
Starship
Troopers, yeah.
Feel to it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love the name dropping that when the Doctor says, "Oh, I love the 50s because you haven't seen it, Die Hard."
Yeah.
Or Alien.
Or Die Hard 2.
Or Aliens. Or Die Hard 3. And he just kind of kept going because he's talking about the ventilation shaft. But then they get into the tunnels and the big cavern underneath, and they meet the Virox Queen, and she's laying eggs. And I mean, you referenced Aliens, and then you stole the scene right at it because it was almost even the headgear that she had with kind of the, I don't know what they were, antlers that kind of that stuck off her head was kind of like
whatever sort of exoskeleton facial mask it was.
That was a bit much. So.
The thing, though,
but if you're going to steal from the best.
The thing, though, one of the things that bothered me the most, though, about that scene is the fact that he seems to know a lot about the. Help me with the alien species again.
Viper Rocks.
He seems to know a lot about the Viper Rocks, but he also seems genuinely surprised that the Queen is there laying eggs. But even though he tells them, well, that's what they do, they come to the planet that they're going to take over,
didn't want to believe that,
and they hatch an army. And it's almost too surprising to him that if he knows so much about them, this shouldn't have been as much of a surprise, and that bothered me a little bit.
Maybe he assumed that they shipped eggs.
Yeah, well,
the Viper Rock ships are giant egg cartons that fly through space. They have to be very careful. There are big force fields protecting them because it's just the styrofoam cardboard stuff, and exposed to the vacuum of space, that would be bad.
Now that being said, this is when you guys watched this. You watched the DVD, correct?
Yeah.
And had you seen this before? This
I had not seen it before tonight.
This is omnibus, right? This is everything together. There's no break.
There's no break.
See, I went back and I had to refresh myself this weekend because
there were breaks, but not an actual break.
There was like commercial break.
Oh, it did fade to black. Yeah. Okay. Well, each fade to black. I don't know if you guys knew this. This was released on the CBC in 6 different parts, and so each fade to black would have been a big cliffhanger ending and credits. And then the next week or day or whatever however they
micro series
was. Yes, it's exactly what it was. And so they sewed these together for this. The reason I know that now is because this weekend I went back and watched it in my digital format, which is broke up into 6 different episodes, and each one starts with a previously on, well, with the exception of the first one, and a intro and trailer. Credits scene, and so watching it this time now. I remember the first time I watched it, and we had these big climactic builds, and to fade to black, it felt a little episodic, like television episodic for the United States, where we build up to a climax before a commercial break. And I always thought that was odd for this, but having seen it now in the perspective of split up into episodes, it makes sense. But I thought that if you watch this one as one big long episode, it really does we've got the big climactic moment. And then we come back down and we resolve it. And then we have a big climactic moment.
Yeah.
That doesn't feel like an episode of Doctor Who, of new Doctor Who.
Maybe that's why
to me. And so it was interesting. And so now putting in perspective, knowing that this was broke up into 6 episodes, it certainly makes it make more sense. But when you watch it all together as one, I think that's why it serves well that they do have the fade to black.
Yeah.
And then come back and give you kind of the previous.
My biggest problem with the story is the Colonel Stark part of it. That the Colonel teams up with Lord Aslock in order to modify this germ warfare to kill the Reds. Their genes aren't any different than us. it's not unless they're going to be so specific. It's going to wipe out all of humanity.
That's a good point. I hadn't thought of that.
When you realize that,
I think
the whole plot of that falls apart.
Well,
of
not necessarily
why,
because
why he teamed up with the Viper.
Yes and no, but because Stark doesn't understand the complexity of this,
and maybe that's
how
the
it works.
Stupidity of
and
the time period.
Well, that's probably how. What's the guy's the main
Stark?
Stark. No, the other one, the guy,
Aslak.
Aslak. I think that was probably misdirection on Aslak's part, if you ask me, because he was obviously pulling the wool over his eyes anyway, because they were going to attack Earth anyway.
Yeah.
There was no partnership.
Yeah, that's true.
On the flip side of that, too, I think that maybe Stark felt that it could be altered enough to direct a certain population as opposed to a gene. So I
guess
I may be presuming
without having the doctor.
I may be presuming that,
without the doctor there to fully explain the scope of what this.
That seems almost clear enough to me that he was just ignorant enough of the fact of what this bomb actually would do.
Or they could alter it enough, because the doctor at no point says, "You idiot, this will
Yes, that may be what fixed it in my head, but I can understand you having a problem.
He didn't. You're absolutely right. He did not.
But I can understand
if it was set up that way, the doctor would have said that.
Yeah.
I would like to think the author would have thought of that.
Yes. I can understand your problem with that, because that does make a lot of sense now that it is brought to mind.
Because, if it's going to wipe out the Viper rocks throughout the universe, what's one little globe in that speck?
I had a problem with the Doctor altering a gene weapon to suddenly become a sound-based sonic device.
Well, he needed the weakness of the Viper rocks. Whatever weakens them, but he was able to modify it.
But he'd already said they have very sensitive ears when they encounter the battlesuit.
Well, yeah.
It seems to me
obviously not that sensitive.
Well, but if you're going to defeat them in this manner, it seems to me that you could have very easily. In fact, I'll be honest. I thought that's where they were going with it. Was that he was just going to hook the sonic up to a loudspeaker and go, and all the aliens would freak out and leave, because that's kind of what you do in these situations. So they have sensitive ears. I know what's coming.
Yeah.
It seemed
strange why not just modify it to give him a cold?
Yeah.
I've given you a cold. Run away.
Well, and that makes more sense, really, because it's a genetic.
Yeah.
It's something dealing with medicine versus sound. That didn't make sense to me. The resolution I thought was weak. Full props go out to David Warner for voicing Lord. What's his name? Aslak. David Warner. Love David Warner.
I wish we could have heard his voice more, because he's such a good voice.
Unfortunately, it was heavily modulated.
Yeah.
I liked the idea of Men in Black actually belonging to another
Aliens.
Celestial
that
agency.
Was pretty cool.
That they send these guys
and then
everywhere.
Being robots.
Yeah.
Which I guess is revisited in a Sarah Jane down the road as
really?
well.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. I liked...
What did you guys think of Georgia Moffat's portrayal?
Oddly enough.
A little serendipity going on.
That was part of the news this week. I loved her. I thought she was fantastic. I think she did a great job.
I think
she does a fantastic American accent.
I kept forgetting that it was her.
If you hadn't told me it was Georgia Moffat when the opening credits come up, I would have not have guessed that it was her. I would never have put that voice to her because
Ditto.
Yeah, it just.
I think she did a great job.
I think it was if Shaun hadn't pointed it out, I wouldn't have realized she was in it. And if I would have saw her name, I would have been like, "Oh, I don't hear a British woman in this movie. Where is she?"
I think the whole voice cast did a fantastic job, and the inflections there, the excitement's there. That's why this would have worked as an audio drama as well. If they just would have been a little more explanative or whatever you want to say. Descriptive, yes, about what's going on. This would work as a.
So Big Finish, if you're listening, this story runs
44 minutes.
44 minutes.
You could expand it to 60.
That's 2 parts. So this totally would work as a 10th Doctor audio adventure once you guys get the licensing from BBC to do that.
Yes, there you go. I think that this would have to be at least 60, maybe more for...
I'll throw the 2 extra parts in, make it a 4-parter.
Well, because you do have to be more descriptive with this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
You can't just say, "Oh, look, they're giant bugs."
And if you could take out the the doggy chew toy squeak noise
the blinking
that Aslog's eyes made. That would be aces.
That was a little much, but overall, we decide it's a good story. Just poor delivery as far as the medium.
Absolutely.
So,
and once again, humanity kind of sucks.
But again, 1950s.
58.
What are we
What
going
do you expect?
We're going to kill them. Did you notice, too?
It's kind of surprising to me that... How long has the Doctor been around at this point? 900 years?
Yes.
And he's never visited Area 51? Surely. Once he got the psychic paper, that would have been one of the first places he would have gone. He could have gone in there. And,
yeah, but he knew he knew he could go to the planet where the aliens that landed there.
But he makes reference to I've always wanted to go there. I
True.
wonder what aliens they got.
And
he's got a busy schedule.
Area 51 would be kind of like the ultimate museum field trip for him.
Yeah,
because and as we've established in the new series, that's how he keeps score. He what are you? I'm an archaeologist. I point and laugh at archaeologists. That would be at the top of his list of you got it wrong.
That's true.
Did you notice how much the interior of the vault was right out of Raiders of the Lost Ark?
Yeah.
As soon as the door opened, I said, "Start looking for the Ark," and then they walked in and it was full of boxes, and I went, "Whoa!"
Yes. Yeah.
And this was.
I think that's a bit of an homage to that as well.
I think so.
Yeah, I think that was the reason why they did that.
This is copyright 2009. And Crystal Skull was 2008.
Yeah.
So that's definitely within the realm of probable.
Yes. Well, yeah. I think you're right.
But, yeah, it's a fun story. I wish there were other ways to go about it. I didn't know it was a 2-disc set, though. Keith pointed that out to me.
Well, the second disc is just the docos and the special stuff. So. That pertains nothing to do with Dreamland whatsoever. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
I won't go out of my way to buy it. I'll just borrow yours.
It's some extra stuff. Yeah, it's some extra stuff that they didn't get into the Series 4 box set. So.
Well, no. I don't think that's true because I watched the first one, and there's an interview with the guy from Next Doctor.
Oh, is
and they talk about the Next Doctor.
Yeah, it might be on there as well. Oh, it might be on the specials.
That's why I totally consider this to fall into the specials realm because he is companionless. And,
Not to mention, this is only 40 minutes, and an extra disc is a way to get them to charge me full price for
there's
a video, is what that turns out to be.
I think that's the main thing.
Yeah. Anyway, our next story is...
Speaking of the Next Doctor...
Let's move on to the Next Doctor.
Christmas,
Are we speaking of the Next
1851.
Are we speaking of the Next
And Cybermen.
The guy that plays the Next Doctor is on the bonus disc.
Oh.
The interview on the bonus disc.
That was a segue.
What was a segue? Here I go.
Way to pay attention.
Ruining the segue again.
You should write a segue.
I'm on a Segway. I'm rolling. Christmas.
It's our opening theme music.
1851. In Cybermen's stock Victorian London, the Doctor discovers a state of a spat of mysterious deaths. I've never seen that spelled out. And he's surprised to meet another Doctor.
Da-na-na.
Are 2 doctors enough to stop the rise of the Cyber King?
Maybe.
You did your da-na-na pretty maturely.
I had a premature da-na-na.
Well, because this story goes pretty decent until a certain point, too. So. Keith, what'd you think? You're the Cyberman. You're the Cyberman.
I have 2 main problems with this. My biggest problem with this are the cyber shades. That is not something Cybermen would do, 1.
You being the foremost expert on Cybermen.
I've seen a lot of Cybermen stuff. And just from even from new series Cybermen, it doesn't make sense. They convert. They completely convert. What are these? What did they even make these things out of in Victorian
That's
London?
what I want to know. Is they're such a mix of like bears and dogs?
They're a mix of a big fluffy dog and a monkey.
Yeah, and monkeys.
Because they crawl around like a monkey.
Yeah, I don't know what they were thinking.
I like the faceplates. I like the bronze faceplates because it makes sense for the time period.
That doesn't. No, that is. But
it's steampunk enough for 1800s London.
It doesn't help the idea of the cyber shade, though. It just
no, it does. I'm just saying. I like. If I would have seen some all bronze Cybermen instead, I would have been completely fine with that because 1850s London. Okay, there's no electricity. They've got it's cyberpunk Cybermen.
Yeah.
I mean, or steampunk Cybermen. And then, unfortunately, the Cybermen are slightly relegated in this story because the A-plot is so good of who is this doctor, quote-unquote doctor, why doesn't he remember his past, what's really going on there, that the Cybermen are relegated, while some people would argue that they're not up to their full potential. There is something I noticed in this, is when the doctor is explaining where the Cybermen came from, and notice their chests.
Cybus Industries locos.
Yeah. It's not an error. They fell through the void. Which I thought was a very nice touch to bring that back to, oh, this is that Cybermen. They didn't have control of where they were going, so they're making the best of what they can in 1850s London. Hence, the capturing the children to make a giant engine. I mean, all of this stuff, I think, makes sense in the fact of they were escaping the void. They didn't have control of where they landed. They're making the best of what they can in order to do what they do.
I agree with that. I don't have a problem with that.
I think a lot of people would nitpick that part of it, but that's how I explain it.
And that all works, and I'm fine with that up till a point.
And I thought the Cyber King was pretty cool.
That's just it. It's when we get to the MacGuffin that
a giant frickin'
that is the giant Cyberman,
a giant steampunk
walking
Cyberman
through 18th century London.
Which now makes that Matt Smith line make
so
much more sense.
Or makes for you, doesn't what is it?
It's got to be like
a 50-foot
Cyberman walking through 18th century London and nobody notices.
It's got to be like in Goonies when he says the octopus was the most gory, and everybody goes octopus, and we're all thinking, oh, he's totally making stuff up now. And it's not until you see the original cut before they made all the edits that there was in fact an octopus, which looked so bad they cut it out. It's got to feel a little bit like that for you now, because when Matt Smith says nobody remembers the 50-foot Cyberman, you're probably going, off-camera adventure there.
Yeah.
No, it wasn't.
On camera now.
That was really cool.
Qualified.
And I honestly didn't have a problem with the Cyber King. I find it unfortunate that it doesn't go the way the Cybermen plan, but I account that as to they don't have the amount of technology needed to complete their full plan, so it backfires on them.
Yeah.
And that's why she's able to take over. The idea that, okay, we are on limited resources, we're going to get this giant ship to take over. We can't fully convert someone, so we're just going to put a helmet on her and wipe the person's emotions out in order to control a Cyber King, which the Doctor later references as a giant warship in advanced fleets. I didn't have any problems with it. They explained it well enough in the story for me that I didn't have a problem.
Glenn? Your rebuttal, sir.
Point.
No,
point.
That makes sense, and they do make an attempt to rectify that, but it's the silliness of it. It's not necessary. It's the Cybermen making a giant Cyberman in order to take over London, and it's the advanced volley on its war against humanity to take over. There are so many other ways that the Cybermen can take over London if they're smart enough
I think that's
to utilize.
One thing I like about it is we haven't seen this way of trying to take over London.
Agreed. However, they're smart enough to utilize this backwards steam technology, or steampunkiness as it is, in order to do what they've done to create a 20-foot or a 50-foot Cyberman. It just seems to me that they could have devised a different system in converting people of that time into Cybermen in that sense, which is their MO anyway. So bringing in a Cyberman to decimate the city doesn't make any sense to me when their MO is to convert people to become Cybermen. This almost seems like too grand of a scheme that doesn't go anywhere at that point. So that's what didn't work for me. Did it not
go anywhere because we didn't get to see it flourish?
It was nice and it was grand and it was a big giant Christmassy, Christmas specially type, event, film, or story, which is what it's designed to be. But it's not the MO of the Cybermen, so it doesn't work for me. Shaun?
I agree. I think from a writing standpoint, it makes so much more sense if you're going to do a timepiece in this particular time frame, and you're going to do this story, and you've got Cybermen. We needed to have seen real steampunk Cybermen. We needed to have seen people that got converted and had a steam pipe sticking up out of the back of their head with, a train whistle on it. And whatever they,
would have been so cool.
I mean, yeah. If we're gonna make the analogy, let's do it. Let's do it for real. Steampunk Cybermen, go. Okay. I mean, the costume department would have had such fun with that, and I think that fits much more with what the Cybermen would intend. We're making do with what we have. Okay, fine. I got tired of the fact that we're making do with what we have, because this is yet another in a long line of Cybermen stories where we're stuck or we're making do with what we have. And obviously, it's in the middle of that particular range. But this is kind of yet another example of, like you said, Keith, where they've been relegated to the B-plot. They're not even main villains anymore. They really need to be amped up and featured as, these are the bad guys
they really
here.
Do.
Unfortunately, the stuff with Jackson Lake and the Next Doctor, that was so much more interesting. They really become an afterthought.
Yes.
But they do such a good job also tying into the Cybermen is why all this happens. I appreciated that.
Yes, and that works for me too. The fact that they have the info stamps from the Daleks, and that's one of them happens to be
so much callback to
one of
the
them
end
happens to be data
yes.
on the Doctor.
Yeah, there really is, and that explains, because I was really upset when I saw the Cybus logo.
Yes.
My hackles went up immediately. I was like, it doesn't work. And then they gave the throwaway line.
Because they come from the void. Yes.
Oh, well, okay, I'll allow it.
Yeah.
But here's the deal. I can tell you exactly how this came about. Russell T. Davies sat down and he thought, I need something big and flashy, and
I need something Christmas
specially for this. And he sat down one night and he ate a lot of pizza and drank a few and flipped on the television. And somewhere they were showing Wild Wild West. And he got to the end of that movie with the giant mechanical spider, and the light bulb went off, and he went, a giant Cyberman stampeding through London. I can do that. And he sat down and wrote the script. Now, I love Wild Wild West.
Yeah.
I have an unabashedly soft spot for that film. It is an absolute piece of junk, but I love it.
Guilty pleasure.
It is such a guilty pleasure. So from that aspect of it, even though there are many, many, many other things that the Cybermen could have been doing that make more sense for Cybermen, I'm totally willing to sit back and engage the Christmas special mode and just let the sights and sounds wash over me on this one and just enjoy it for what it was. I thought the Cyber King was really cool. I thought that was just a blast and a lot of fun. I loved all the little touches that they threw in there. I love the fact that Harrigan, whatever her name is, it's not listed there. The evil chick.
Yeah, hang on.
That she was able to exert her influence over them, which was not according to plan, and that they had a woman in charge of the cyber leader position. I thought that was a very interesting twist, and such a strong-willed one. I actually received a genuine
Hardigan,
thank you. I had a genuine kind of shock of, that's horrible, when they reveal that they have children in the mines.
Yeah.
I mean, that was honestly a little disturbing.
Yeah, and
I kind of expected that.
Let me springboard off of that, because this is Edwardian / Victorian, I don't know which era this is, London. And we do have that sort of Charles Dickens
Christmas
feel
Carol.
to it.
With
Yes,
Tiny Tim showing up.
Yeah, not even so much that, but more of the Oliver or Oliver Twist. Is that Dickens? Yeah. Oliver Twist feel, where we have the children who are the orphans in the orphanage, and those make sense to be the ones that nobody cares about. Nobody would notice that these kids are working in a factory, and by having the mind control of those that run the orphanage, and then marching these kids into this and using it totally makes sense, and it works, and it has a bit of a Christmassy feel because it's Dickens, and so that works.
Yeah, I wonder.
And I did the same thing. I went, how terrible that you're using orphans to run your giant machine.
I did have a Venture Brothers moment. It's powered by orphans.
I wonder if, like, the prop department screwed up in making this, and like we get whatever order they shot this in, and they had the Cybus logo on it, and then Russell T Davies was like, "Oh, that's not supposed to be there." Crap! I need to write a line in to explain that.
Here comes the retcon. Get this over to David. Have him say it.
I could totally see that happening.
Very easily, probably. I don't know. That would be a fun story to hear on the making of. I think Morrissey is fantastic.
He is.
Totally be up for him coming back as the Doctor.
Did either of you get a Peter Davison feel from him when he was as the Doctor? I don't know, something about the way he spoke and almost the way he looked.
I'm trying to recall
like his
in my
facial
head whether I
expressions
think that now.
face.
I didn't at the time, but perhaps
Sarah
I can
and I both. Sarah said it first, but I was thinking
perhaps I can sort of see that. Mm-hmm.
From his
what's his demeanor?
Chrissy, I'm going to apologize.
His
in
demeanor
advance
is a little Fifth Doctor.
I'm going to apologize in advance for my choice of wording here. His arrogance, maybe.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what it is. That's exactly what it is. You're right. It is. It's the.
I'm the Doctor. I know.
Yes.
I do no wrong.
I can solve everything with a kettle and some string.
And look at me. I'm wearing a vegetable.
Speaking of that, I like the fact that even that they write into this that it's the next Doctor. That's the idea is that that Davis is trying to convince us that this could be the next incarnation. This might be a multi-Doctor story. I knew going into it that wasn't where we were going to go with this, even ahead of time.
The logic center of my brain was going, that's a red herring, that's a red herring, that's a red herring.
Exactly.
The fanboy was like, maybe.
Part of that with me is because I knew they were still looking for the next Doctor because David Tennant had named or had mentioned or had announced that he was leaving. Right. And I knew that they were still interviewing for the next Doctor. So this comes out in the midst of them interviewing for the next Doctor, and I knew that this couldn't be who it was going to be. So I knew that this was going to happen the way that it was, that this really wasn't who we thought it was, which is something that has happened in a Big Finish audio as well, called The Two Doctors, which you guys should listen to because it's fantastic. So, which I thought is where they were going with this and what they were borrowing from. Now, they do differ in very vast ways, but a lot of people were comparing these two to each other. However, the going into this, I like the fact that David that Ten thinks that
totally buys into it.
He buys into it at first, and
he buys into the possibility.
He keeps throwing out the tests, and Jackson seems to pass the tests the first few times.
Yeah.
It isn't
until
it's the
memory issues.
Yeah, it doesn't happen until we get into the third or fourth test that we realize that Ten is figuring this out. That I'm still going to throw these questions at you because I want to make sure I'm right. I want to satisfy my curiosity here.
But it's so well written and it's so well performed in the way that the Doctor goes about it. Yes, he's testing him, but he's also doing it in such a way that he doesn't spoil anything for himself just in case this is a future incarnation.
Yes. And that even though he's figuring it out, he's also still, in turn, protecting Jackson and playing into the delusion that he has because he knows that he's fragile at this point. There is an issue here with presenting the truth to him at a point.
Right.
And he realizes that I have to now approach this with kid gloves and make sure that I don't shatter this man who has these delusions now. And you get to that point.
There's so many
you get
layers
to those
in
points.
this
You get to that point beyond the I don't want to spoil things for myself, but I'm not sure this is what I think it is. Yes.
Were you guys surprised by the reveal?
Surprised
Which one?
By
which reveal?
Why?
No,
not the info stamp, but why he retreated.
No, I wasn't surprised by that. In fact, we talked about the wife being dead, and I think that was satisfactory to me enough why his mind retreated.
See,
but
as soon as he said they took something from me, I knew.
From that line, I sort of figured out that he also had a child that was taken as well.
Even before they revealed the wife, he said they took something from me.
That's what I'm saying.
I instantly knew he had a family.
I guess that's what I'm thinking is based on that idea. When they talked about the wife, and you got the impression that the wife was dead, The taken from me, I didn't necessarily equate to being the wife, so I thought there was much more. I thought family. I thought family.
I knew
like
that there was one shoe. The other hadn't dropped yet.
Yeah, there you
for
go.
The son.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There you go.
See, I suspected wife. I did not suspect child until that one was revealed.
Oh, really?
So, okay.
Even when there was something else I couldn't remember?
Even when there was something else he couldn't remember, and even after we've established that there are children working in the mine. That, I should have made that deductive leap, but I didn't, and I think it was because I was wrapped up in, there's a 50-foot Cyberman stopping through London.
Here's the other problem that I have with it now that we're getting to the children in the mine. I really felt like there was an opportunity for someone else to shine here as opposed to the Doctor. I really like our heroic Doctor. I like the Doctor that goes in and saves the day. I've always enjoyed that. But in this story, I almost felt like I needed Jackson to be the one that rescues the son.
I agree.
I
It felt like this story lended to that. And that by the Doctor saving him, it almost left a bad taste in my mouth just in the fact that it's like you've already figured this out. You've already reunited Jackson with his memories. You've gotten everything squared away in time. The way that Jackson redeems himself at this point, not necessarily redeems himself, but becomes the hero that he should be, because he's not now. That's been stripped away. He's not the Doctor.
Right.
He's not the hero. The way to make him the hero now is have him save the son.
Yeah.
And to have the Doctor do that, that made this episode fall down for me. And that's where it starts to crumble, and then the Cybermen.
I don't think it fell down for me
because
there. I think it was a missed opportunity.
Yeah, it was a missed opportunity, because then you
you
have Ten's big heroic moment of being the one that takes on the giant Cyber King.
Which, how cool was it, him and the other TARDIS?
I loved when as soon as he said, that we've got to get to the TARDIS, and Tennant kind of looks at him like, dude, you're still on about this?
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, what could they possibly... Oh, cool! That's a hot air balloon.
Tethered, aerial release, developed in style.
Which, in seeing it, of course, it's going to eventually fly.
Right,
You can't show us a hot air balloon TARDIS and not take it up in the air.
Having 10 then, in turn, use it as the device. That works well for me as well, even though we're battling a 50-foot Cyberman. But
there's nothing wrong with 50-foot Cybermen.
Yeah,
it's not so much. I guess I didn't view it so much as
if it was a 50-foot robot by some other alien species, I could have got more excited about it. But again, it's
what if it was a
within
50-foot
the Cyberman's MO, and so it doesn't. It was almost ridiculous to me. That's just. It wouldn't have been ridiculous had a 50-foot giant robot been.
So if
rampaging,
if the Doctor had encountered somebody by the name of Kettlewell, who had crazy
there you go,
and was building a steampunk robot that was 50 feet tall, and it got loose and went
Kettlewell's great-grandfather. That would have been awesome. Great-great-grandfather.
It would be awesome.
That would have been awesome. I'd have been all over that. I'd have been on board, and the next Doctor would have been one of the best stories of the new series. But then they had to interject the fact that it was Cybermen. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate the Cybermen, Keith, because I do. I love the Cybermen. The Cybermen are favorites of mine. I like the Daleks better, but the Cybermen are favorite of mine. But they're so underused, and then when they are the center of attention, which they are here, they are the main villain. They're not even underutilized in this scene. Their MO is changed. That's what I had a problem with. Is that this is not the Cybermen. This is not the way the Cybermen act. It's not within their
I guess for me,
MO.
But I guess for me, because
what were they going to do after they stomped London?
I don't know.
Well, they kept talking about this forward command as though there were more Cybermen coming, but they luckily came out of the void. None of the rest of the Cybermen were trapped in the void.
So for me, it's almost like they were part of a party, and they came out of the void, and they're just continuing what their mission was, regardless of what the situation was.
So we had the opportunity to build.
It's not coming.
Well, hang on. They had the opportunity to build a 50-foot Cyber King. They couldn't have built a radio transmitter to call the Cybermen in this time frame and said, "Dude, we're on some backwater planet. Come pick us up."
Which would have made more sense.
The Tower of London is a transmitter. Oh, okay. Like I said. You got to shift gears. You got to go into that. It's a Christmas special, and
I guess
we're going to get something completely ridiculous.
How many times have
and we should be used to that by now.
The Cybermen constantly get thwarted by the Doctor, so I guess it's not too surprising to me that they would start to change tactics. Unlike the Daleks, who just keep going, bam, 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 Bam! It's not working. I wonder why.
But the thing is, you're giving the Cybermen too much credit, because the Cybermen, technically, these Cybermen, this incarnation of Cybermen,
They had a Cyber leader.
have only been thwarted twice by the Doctor.
That's true. But
Whereas the Daleks,
That's true.
have-
These are
then you have-
these are Pete's World
But then you
Cybermen.
can't say the Cybermen are breaking MO, because we've only seen one instance of these Cybermen. I can turn the same argument against you.
He's got
wait a
you
minute.
there,
no,
Chico.
let me back that up. No, let me back that up by saying the Cybermen's MO, since they've been invented for this series, has been the same as our
But these
world
are-
Cybermen.
Well,
So you have to equate those world Cybermen with at least the same.
it's a parallel universe. There's
directive,
Zeppelins
but
in the
it's the
world. You
same-
don't know
Pete's
what's
World.
going on.
Say it. Pete's World.
Pete's World.
Thank you.
The cybernetic ones,
Just because I like the name of it.
but our world Cybermen and Pete's World Cybermen have had the same MO established. That's what I'm saying is you've established the same guidelines and the same ground rules and the same directive here, and we deviate from that a little bit. It's not a game breaker for me, this episode. It's not a bad episode. This isn't a stinker. There's enough good in this, and I'm a little like Shaun in the sense that I just did step back and say, okay, I'm gonna take the ride here because this is where we're going with this, and it's Christmas. So that wasn't even a game breaker. That's just something that bothered me about the episode, is that it doesn't fit in the directive of the Cybermen, what the Cybermen are developed for in both universes.
I guess I just attribute it to them adapting and changing.
I attribute it to your unhealthy man crush on the Cybermen, that you're willing to give them that benefit of the
Cybermen are
doubt.
cooler than Daleks. Cybermen are scarier than Daleks.
I agree with that. I really do. As much as I love the Daleks and have been terrified of the Daleks since I was a kid in some way, I think you're right. I think Cybermen are scarier, and that's why I think I'm so frustrated that we get one after another of them not living up to the potential. In a lot of ways, it's like the Dalek stories. I would really like to see a Dalek story where they show up, they're up to no good, the Doctor shows up and starts trying to have a conversation with them, and they just start shooting at him. And he's like, what? No witty banner? No, and they're like, no. Blam, 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 blam. And just, and change tactics that way, because we always reveal too much. Let's tell them the scheme before.
That's a
the
fatal flaw of all villains.
They're like Bond villains. They just, well, first I'm going to tie you to this volcano and then throw in a live shark with a laser stuck to its head and see how that works.
I think that's what the Cybermen have going for them, even though a lot of people were frustrated with the fact that we rebooted the Cybermen story by creating Elseworld Cybermen, or Parallel Universe Cybermen, or Pete's World Cybermen. I think that where they fall down is we have this opportunity to create a scarier Cyberman, or something that hasn't come before.
Yeah.
And then we take that opportunity and we squelch it by making them the background characters in a lot of stories, or we do start out with the same style of Cybermen by not expounding the story. So I guess I'll give this story credit for going outside the box and coming up with a different directive.
And really, how many?
It doesn't work for me, because what do they think? Like Shaun said, what do they think they're going to do after they smash London? I mean, they should have spent all this time and effort creating a machine that could convert humans, as opposed to creating all this time and effort to create a giant Cyberman that could then stomp through.
Didn't the Doctor say a line about the Cyber King is they just built a 50-foot giant robot to convert people? I remember hearing a conversion machine.
I think you're right. He does call it a conversion machine.
It does.
It's converting buildings into rubble.
Yeah, and it is converting the one. What's her name? We just came up with her name. Haddocken to the Cyber King. Hardigan.
I guess the way he said it, it sounded
Cyber
like
King.
that. Okay, it'll walk through, pick up people, and convert them into Cybermen as forward advance. That's the impression I got from the way he said the line.
Okay. Now that you say that, I will forgive that a little bit, because that if indeed that is a fact, it does
kind of makes it a War of the Worlds thing.
Yeah, that's what it does.
He doesn't explain it. He just throws the line of it's a conversion.
And maybe that was Russell T. Davies realizing late in the script. Wait a minute, I better put something.
That's
in
very
there,
possible
so.
too.
Right,
after he woke up the next morning after faxing the script into the production office, and he went, "Oh my God, I watched Wild Wild West last night. No, I got to fix this."
And I guess I don't have a problem with a lot of the changes too, is because how many episodes of Cyberman stories can you watch of the same MO without getting bored?
That's a good point. I agree. Well, I would agree.
And how many Dalek episodes have we gotten that are exactly the same?
Exactly.
I mean,
exactly.
And
No,
this,
agree.
I think, is
Which is partially why I like the Dalek two-parter from season 3.
Yeah.
It's a change
Still the
of
same.
tactics.
No, still the same.
It's a slight change of tactics.
No, it's not. And not like this. And that's why I say I congratulate their efforts to try to come up with something different. It's just it fizzles in the sense
I agree.
that
It could have been
doesn't
executed
work.
better.
It could have been executed.
Well, and this wouldn't bother us nearly so badly, I don't think, if they'd taken advantage of the opportunity they had. We're going to reboot the Cybermen. We're in an alternate universe. We've got the opportunity to do something completely new with them. They're still Cybermen, but we're going to do this with them. Okay, that's really kind of an interesting idea, because if you do a completely different... We talked about this where it's like if you had the opportunity to write a Dalek episode versus a Zygon episode. Well, I want to do Zygons to add to the mythos of what there is versus what more of the same. Okay, so you've got this alternate universe. You have that opportunity to fundamentally do something completely, radically different with the Cybermen. But they didn't.
They chose to go with the familiarity.
And that
but how much
MO.
backlash would they have gotten if they changed it?
Yeah, you're darned if you do and darned if you don't.
Well, but that's just it. That's the beauty of it, because it's an alternate world. It's Pete's world. We're in a different universe. You can still bring back the established Cybermen,
and you would have been fine
okay with it.
You'd have been fine with that, yes. But the problem is when you...
How many fans stop to think, oh, wait, this is a parallel
That's
universe.
just it. Well, when you come into it and you say, okay, the Cybermen are returning, whether you have the opportunity to bring our world Cybermen back, you're still going to have that backlash. And I think that's what they focused on when they returned with, because this was only the second main returning villain. Our first one was the Daleks, and then we decided to do the Cybermen. And I think that they felt necessary to stay with the concept. I think you would have got a backlash.
Maybe.
You already got a backlash.
I think they
you
did get
already got a
backlash,
backlash with the fact that it was an alternate universe.
I think you do get backlash. I'm going to go there. Star Trek, when they bring the Borg and the episode I, Borg, where they all of a sudden introduce this personality into these unstoppable, killing robots. Hugh, which individually was a fantastic episode. But when they carried that idea further to the next step and went that there's a whole splinter off group of the Borg that all have emotions and all have feelings and all have this, it fell down and it didn't work. So now all of a sudden we come out with First Contact and the Borg are back, and we've ignored that, and we go back to traditional, in-your-face, we're coming to get you Borg. I think you could have done the same thing with the Cybermen. I think you could have tried a one-off and done something completely different with them. And maybe it would have been really cool. Maybe it would have fallen flat.
What I'm saying
but
is,
you still have the opportunity to bring regular Cybermen back, and the fans are okay with it, just like the fans were okay with the Borg coming back.
Yes,
in
I
First
think
Contact.
that in essence would have happened, but I think you have
They
to
wouldn't
take...
have been okay with it until they came back.
That's
the
just
second
it.
time.
You have to take the first step, and I think they were
gotta take the
afraid.
chances.
They were afraid, especially in the second year of this, of alienating the fan by going that off
But
step.
had they done that, and this is obviously total what-if scenario here, but if they had done that and gone something completely different,
it would have worked better.
You wouldn't have had a problem
No,
with a giant
I probably
50-foot
wouldn't
Cyber
have.
King then.
I wouldn't have. Again, it's still a little silly, but the silliness of it is negated by the fact that there's a reason for it.
Okay.
So I agree. It's not
Just-
horrible.
just
It's not a horrible
speaking of
episode.
the
I don't want
Cybermen-
anybody to think that I didn't like this episode, because
No,
there's
I don't think any of us
there's
are getting that
another
impression.
episode of the specials that I liked less than this. So
Oh, well. Speaking of the Cybermen,
there's a
though,
couple episodes I liked less than this, but
I don't remember as much in Classic Who. Of course, granted, the first two are lost, and I've only read synopsis of the first one and reading the novelization of the second
if you're
one.
checking your bingo card, you get the Lost reference.
That's not a Lost reference. Wrong Lost.
Oh,
But they seem to
semantics.
in,
Come
in-
on.
in new series they seem to play up the conversion aspect a bit more than I remember in the classic series. That the fact that these were once humans,
Probably
or
in
current.
later episodes, because even the two Doctors, we don't talk about conversion at all. We're looking for time travel. Oh no, I'm thinking of those are Sontarans.
That's the Sontarans.
Boy, I got completely off base there.
You confused me there
Well,
so
yeah,
much
and-
with that, because
well,
I was like,
Revenge-
I was going down the list going,
Yes,
Wait, what
wait.
the?
Revenge of the Cybermen.
Yes,
they don't
no.
really focus on that because they're at war.
Yes, because they're looking to squelch the weapon that
I think
would be
he's
used
right.
against
I
them.
think
Yeah.
maybe that is the
I think
tact they took
that's
with
the
it.
new, and that's having watched before.
But see, that's the problem is we're not. You can. you can utilize it, but we're not at war with the humans right now.
Well, that's true.
I mean, this might have been the first volley, but I mean, it's coming from where we came from and knowing what the Cybermen were designed to be and what they were designed to do. Then falling out of the void the third time that we see him, it still doesn't work.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying.
I'm just going back to the Pete's. I'm just going back to the Pete's World initial.
Yeah. I appreciate
part.
the
I gotta give points to Keith
attempt
for that one because it is something different. We've always known that these were converted humans, or that they started off as human and went different
I've always
direction.
got from the classics. Always started off as human and converted themselves.
Well, and I
not unwillingly converted.
There's a line. I mean, it's been forever since I've seen it, so you're probably more well versed on it than I am. But in Revenge, there's something about they have a group of slaves that the Doctor makes a comment about they're going to be converted, but they don't. It's not. You don't see the conversion process. You don't. That's it. That's
there's just that one line.
And again, that makes sense from a cybernetic organism standpoint. That you're not born this way. You have to come. You know, you have to have new recruits somewhere. Yeah. So that makes sense. But maybe you're right. Maybe the Pete's World, that was the big divergence, is they decided to focus on the conversion and the horror of that versus the, oh, look, it's a metal monster lumbering its way toward me.
Oh, look, it's a metallic monster that can walk instead of roll.
That's true. The one thing I'll say that for Pete's World Cybermen, they're not very sturdy.
Well, classic Cybermen aren't either.
But with classic Cybermen, though, you really had to go at them in order to get rid of them.
Well, it's almost like they've come up with better ways to get rid of them as the series progresses.
Well, and I wish I could remember now. There was a podcast, one of the few that I listened to when you said you wanted to do this. I sampled a handful of them, and one of them was reviewing this episode. I want to say I'm just not even going to say it because I'll probably get it wrong. But they talked about this particular episode. This was the one they were reviewing when I listened to it, and they talked about the fact that all of the Cybermen are very easily dispatched. With exploding heads. That's the MO of destroying the Cybermen. That's the new deal. Is that anytime one of them goes down, their head has to explode for apparently no reason. And I thought about that at the time that I heard that, and I thought, wow, you're right. I mean, you go back and you look, and they've all done that. And what happened to it being? I mean, I remember the Cybermen being kind of resilient. I mean, not Dalek level of tough, but you pretty much had to have gold dust if you wanted to get out of there alive.
Well, I want to say, I think Stephen Moffat brought that back a little bit. Granted, he took a little bit of that away in Closing Time, but in Pandorica, there's a Cyberman walking around without a body in it.
Yeah. The cybernetics still survive.
Yeah, and the hand.
Yeah.
And the helmet trying to get her in there. I mean, I think that's a
and those were elements that I did like, that I appreciated from that. But then later
that's some of that. And then
Pete's World Cybermen either.
Those are our yeah.
So maybe that's the difference, is that they're scarier, but you can dispatch them easier.
but then we have the Closing Time, which they are dispatched pretty easily.
With love.
I went back and rewatched that episode.
Well, that goes back to the way we dispatched the Pete's World Cybermen in the original two-parter, is the fact that we give them emotion and make them realize what they are. Well, that's kind of the same concept.
That's dispatching them with self-loathing.
Well, but it's still emotion.
I went back and rewatched
some sort of emotion.
When I went back and rewatched Closing Time not too long ago.
It makes you appreciate Cyberman Bob, doesn't it? He's a tough old bird. He just went insane. He didn't die.
The Doctor tries to... I didn't remember this until I rewatched it. The Doctor tries to explain why their heads exploded, and then he gives up.
He gives up on explaining a lot of things.
That doesn't have anything to do with why their heads explode. That's just the emotional feedback.
Well, forget that. It's nothing like that.
Yeah. Picture a banana.
No, it's
nothing like banana. Don't ignore the banana.
Anyway.
Do we want to cover real quickly Music of the Spheres, since we did watch it?
Did you watch it, Glenn?
I've watched it. It's been a while.
This
was the only one I didn't rewatch this week.
It was...
For those of you not in the know, there's a segment of Doctor Who the Proms. 2008, which is on the specials. So a special feature on the specials bonus disc where they do the Doctor Who concert, and within the concert there's...
Which Sarah and I popped in, because we watched the next Doctor first, and then Shaun and Mel and Billy came over to watch Dreamland, and so we just popped that on. I was like, oh, okay, that. didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Really cool. And then we got to
And
that
we only
part.
see the setup. We don't see the actual music because that's what it is. It's a setup to a string of music that is.
They play it.
Did they play the music?
It's
well,
the
yes,
proms.
yes,
It's
no.
the Doctor Who the Proms. Yeah.
yes,
the whole thing.
no.
Yeah.
Oh, it is okay. I
Yeah,
didn't realize it
it's
was
like
the whole-
it's like Star Wars Live.
Okay,
That's
so I've
essentially what
only
it is.
seen the setup with the David Tennant recorded stuff.
Interestingly
It's
enough,
in the middle.
That's in the middle of it.
Okay, that's all I have
Yeah.
seen of it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen the actual.
And when he throws the papers into when he throws the composing into the wormhole, they actually had on stage this thing.
Yes, and I see. Yeah, I've seen that clip.
The
in
cutaways.
The middle. Yes,
Yeah.
when we actually see what's happening in the audience and the little grass running around in the audience. Yeah, we see all that.
I
yeah.
liked Music of the Spheres.
It was
I thought
cute.
it was really
It's
cool.
really cute.
It was a neat way to tie in a live event like that into the Doctor Who series and sort of
How could you
try
do
to
an event like
make
that
it
without
canonical?
having the Doctor
Yeah, no,
included?
absolutely. Yeah,
and
absolutely.
that's how I view it. It's just
Absolutely.
even if it's not canonical, it's
It's
a way
not,
to
but
include the Doctor in an
puts you
awesome
in,
experience.
Yes, it puts you in the experience. It does its own thing to put you in the world of the Doctor. At the
Yeah.
time.
Well, I mean, because the prom starts out, and it starts out with the main theme, and then Martha comes out and introduces the next bit, and it's the creatures of, and people in costumes come out. There are Cybermen walking down the aisles, and an Ood, and Santarans, and what's the other one? Jadoon are in the audience
I have seen clips of that
interacting
now
with,
that I think about
and,
it.
and it's so cool. And then going to see the Doctor part of it, it totally makes sense within what they were doing.
What was really cool is because I had only seen the Music of the Spheres clip. I hadn't seen any of Doctor Who at the Proms. So when we got over here and watched a little bit of the Proms material beforehand, and to see the lead into it, and then all of a sudden Martha comes out and says, "Well, here's the man himself, here's the Doctor," and then they go to this televised clip where he's writing music and interacting with the audience through this wormhole. It was just cool. The true joy of it. And if you haven't seen Doctor Who at the Proms, totally check it out.
We
It
need
is
to finish it because
so
I want to.
worth your time.
And
not
if you
only
have
from a
the-
music standpoint, which the
You
music's
have the
fantastic.
Blu-ray Christmas Carol. It's their 2010 version is on there, and from what I've found, it's not on anything else, which I just went and sold.
Way to go, Keith.
I would have loved to
Way to go,
see
Keith.
whatever they did with Matt Smith's music.
How come you didn't have all of the special features on? You watched Christmas Carol like 3 different times.
I
at the time
know,
that you
but
owned it.
I didn't know
And
what
it
the
wasn't
prom.
even Christmas.
I didn't
And
know what
you-
the proms was.
But
I didn't
just
realize.
out of mild curiosity, you can go, "Oh, I wonder what that is." Click.
I watched other stuff on it, and I was like, I'm tired. I'll go to bed.
Anyway, the true joy of this setup is when she says, "And now the man himself, here's the Doctor," and they go to this video clip, and it's the Doctor. And everybody kind of perks up because, we're going to get a little mini soda or something. And then he starts talking to them. And the reaction of the kids in the audience, where they buy into this.
Well,
Like,
he even does the what? I can't hear you.
You have to really shout because of the wormhole. And so everybody's screaming at him. Oh, hello. And just, you could tell David Tennant had a lot of fun doing that particular skit. But the joy on their face when they're watching this and getting into it and the excitement, that is to be treasured. The next segment, after the Doctor signs off and leaves, is a Dalek rolls down the ramp on stage, announces that Albert Hall has been taken over and is surrounded, and then a pit opens up and Davros rises out of the pit in the middle of the audience.
see that.
And
It's so cool.
It's the guy in makeup in the full bit, and he begins threatening everybody with extermination, and we're only going to listen to Dalek music now. And then, of course, they play the Dalek theme, and the reaction on the kids' faces,
There was one kid so specifically that looked so terrified.
just instant terror, because it's not like there he is; it's there he is. I mean. And,
It's not like it's on a screen. It's
the crowd reaction shots were great because they went from everybody's happy and excited and parents are holding their children going, look, and the kids are cheering, everything like this, to the kids are clinging to the parents and they're not quite sure they want to know what's going on. It was amazing. It was so cool to watch this.
It would have been so cool to be there.
Oh, yeah.
live.
Yeah.
Even just without the extra stuff to go and have the screen with a live orchestra playing music, 2 clips of the show, because for Rose's theme and because they did the Doctor's theme or whatever the Doctor's theme is called in David Tennant's time, Rose's theme and Martha versus the Master all in one long section with clips throughout all of it would have been really cool just to see it as. And then all the interaction that they had with it would have been, ooh. I don't know what comes after the Daleks, because that's where we stopped. To watch Dreamland.
Yeah, it was almost a little bit of a letdown, wasn't it? We left this really cool. But no, Music of the Spheres is the segment in the middle, and it's very cool, and it's a lot of
Which
fun.
is our first Sarah Jane Adventures Doctor Who crossover. Because as far as Shaun was aware, Grasks have never shown up in Doctor Who.
No, Grasks actually showed up in Doctor Who first.
Oh.
That was in the interactive IBBC player
Attack of the Grass.
Attack of the Grass.
I didn't know that came
and
first.
And then became
Well, is that canon if it's Choose Your Own Adventure?
It's quasi-canonical.
Again, your canon is a term. BBC doesn't like the word canon because they can't force you to go out and buy this.
Well, yeah.
Right,
So, like Big Finish, for example, they can never classify Big Finish as canon because that would require you to go buy it.
Is on the first or second set of discs, right?
Is it?
I believe it is. I think we skipped it when we were reviewing sets.
I've never watched it if it's on there.
Yeah, I believe it is on there. So
that
you don't get the option of doing the interactive menu. I think it shows you.
Well, heck, let's boot up Sarah Jane and we'll do a Grask adversary archive.
I've seen the one from season 1, so.
While Keith's looking that up, Shaun, what do we got coming up on the schedule?
Well, coming up on the schedule for next week, this Friday for Friday Night Who, we continue with the Ice Warriors, well, light. At this point, with the follow-up. John Pertwee's back. We're going to watch The Monster of Peladon. Last week we watched Curse of Peladon, so hopefully you can join us for that. We push play at midnight on Friday. And then our discussion topic for next week, if you're following along and have homework that you need to get done or would just like to refresh your memory, the next two specials. We do Planet of the Dead and The Waters of Mars, which I can't wait for because
that's my favorite of the specials.
Yeah,
Waters of Mars.
Agreed. I suspect we may have some to talk about one and a lot to talk about the other. So there's that. You want me to keep going, or do you just want to
exciting stuff? He hasn't found it yet.
I haven't found it. It's not on series 1.
Well, then we'll have something to for people to hang on to for next week. Then,
and there's your cliffhanger.
That'll be the addendum.
Vortex.
Or you could do it as an addendum, like Shaun did for the show notes on the website.
Anyway, put a note up saying it doesn't.
I think that's going to do it for us this week. Until next week, I'm Glenn.
Cyber Kings are cool,
but not Cyber Shades.
But not Cyber Shades. not even I could retcon that into something. Worthwhile.
Anyway, I'm Glenn.
Ooh, a Cyber Merca.
I'm Glenn.
That'd be kind of cool, wouldn't it?
Shaun.
I'm Shaun.
I'm Keith.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone. Yeah, now you're gonna what? wait, back up just a minute.
Major pause there.
Now you're gonna fritz out on us.
Cheers.
Good night, everyone.
Be seeing you.
You have been listening to Traveling the Vortex. Doctor Who and all of its associated programs are owned and trademarked by the BBC. No infringement is intended or implied.